enhancer binding proteins, we have co-activators that either enhance the transcription or suppress the transcription factors, RNA polymerase 2, and then there are spliceosomes, and there are protein mRNA, the way we have 3' UTR snRNAs and microRNAs binding 3' UTR. There are various different regulatory proteins that bind 3' UTR regulating the transcription. So the complexity is further gone up with these proteins coming into play, and any aberrations in these proteins also will lead to faulty transcription, right? The next level of regulation of gene is beyond the gene structure, beyond the promoter, and that comes through enhancer sequences that are few hundreds of kbs away on a chromosome sequence, right? So when we do DNA sequencing today, even when we don't find any mutations in any of the gene regulatory elements, still there is a possibility that gene function is affected. Now, this comes into picture mostly when we look at p53 mutations and BRCA mutations. So, as of today, when a breast cancer patient or any cancer patient comes to the clinic with a family history, they are asked to do gene level sequencing for BRCA1, BRCA2, and p53. Right? If there is any mutation in the gene sequence, we understand that BRCA1, BRCA2, or p53 is mutated, and that's the cause for particular cancer, and then we know what kind of treatment to give. There are times when a person has a family history, strong family history, so there has to be something wrong with these genes that a clinician understands. But on sequencing, there is nothing wrong in the promoter sequence or any of the important exons that matter for the function. So during those cases, a clinician advises for upstream gene level sequencing, crude sequencing, to look at duplicates and deletions and insertion up to 100 kb upstream of BRCA gene and p53 gene. And most of the cases we find aberrations in these upstream regulatory elements that are basically suppressing BRCA1, BRCA2 mutation, right? So that's the silencing of BRCA1 expression, BRCA2 expression is happening. And those are also considered germline aberrations, and that person gets categorized, qualified for olaparib, for PARP inhibitor therapy, because ultimately BRCA1, BRCA2 is not expressed despite having wild type gene structure, but they have aberrations in the upstream regulatory elements of BRCA1, BRCA2. So this understanding how gene expression is regulated has direct implication for us to understand what part of the machinery is affecting, is responsible for cancer development. And today, as of today, we actually have a drug to help that particular patient wherever these kind of aberrations we notice in patients, right? So there are direct implications having this knowledge into clinical system when it comes to treat a cancer. Now, this is just further detail. We talked about this. So apart from BRCA1, BRCA2 mutations, there are the ones that we discussed, the epigenetic modifiers, right? HAT inhibitors and HDAC inhibitors are also employed to remove any silencing on any particular gene. So the way we mentioned that BRCA1 can be silenced, same way p53 can be silenced through various different mechanisms. So in those loss of function p53 BRCA genes due to epigenetic modification in upstream regions, that's when HDACs and HDAC inhibitors, HAT inhibitors, DNMT inhibitors are employed in the system, right? So this is quite complex. So yeah. Right. So the point here I want to make is the way enhancers regulate gene expression, and we know that modifications in upstream enhancers and suppressor regulatory elements will lead to a particular gene expression or not, right? So just looking at mutation in the genetic element like BRCA1 p53 is not sufficient. We also need to look at gene expression, and this gene expression is tissue specific. So the example that I gave you, that family history patient with a strong history of cancer in the family, the patient is come up early age cancer, no mutation in BRCA, and you ask for upstream sequencing done, and nothing comes wrong in that also. In that case, the patient is sent for looking at protein level or gene level expression in the patient tissue to look at BRCA1, BRCA2, and P53 expression, right? So there are, if gene expression is high, we know that BRCA function is normal. But despite no mutations in the gene, despite no aberrations in enhancer sequence, if we see gene expression is lost, for example, in gene 4 here, there is no transcript or no protein expressed. This is where we know that for some unknown reasons, particular protein like BRCA1, BRCA2 is not expressed, and that person still qualifies for olaparib therapy. And this part of complexity is still beyond us, and people are trying to figure out what are the different control mechanisms that regulate a particular gene expression differentially in various different cells, right? So, and that's why it is important to have your tumor tissue examined for somatic expression, somatic mutations also. Because you may have normal expression in other tissues, but you may have abnormal expression for various reasons in that particular tissue where the tumor is initiated. And the reason this complexity exists, because there are various different upstream elements that are differentially regulated in various different tissue systems. Now, I have examples for how a particular gene can be regulated differently in different tissue, but let's not get into that complexity, specific example. But just to give you an example of complexity is, this is a snapshot of what percentage of genes are expressed in various different tissue organs, right? So all of us know there are about 20,000 transcribable genes, only 20,000, okay? Transcribable genes in a human system. So when we do whole transcriptome analysis, it is mostly 20 to 20,000 genes maximum that are being sequenced. That's our understanding as of today, that we have about 22,000 genes expressed in a human system. But out of those 22,000, you can see in this slide, not all of them are actively expressed in various different tissue systems. Like thyroid has 8,000, pituitary gland only has 1,600, right? Prostate has only 1,000. Whole blood has about 5,800 genes expressed, right? So this tissue specificity out of those 20,000 is achieved through various different tissue level regulation of transcription. And this angle we still don't have any handle on. We understand what genes are expressed in what tissue, but we do not have full control and understanding on what are the factors that are regulating and making sure that certain genes are expressed and certain genes are suppressed in tissue specific system. We do know also that the proportion and the regions of heterochromatin and euchromatin differ at tissue level also, right? But at mechanistic level, which proteins are responsible for these tissue specificity is still being studied. But this we do take it forward and employ it for diagnosis purposes, right? So this tissue specificity differential expression has been developed into understanding subtypes of cancer. This is one example in breast cancer. This paper is first published was in 2000, and by the end of 2011, this entire gene expression system was FDA approved to subtype various different breast cancers, and also this expression system was further used in diagnostic purposes. So these are various different subtypes of breast cancer, and tissue level broader expression patterns. When we study, we see differential patterns for various different types, right? So the blue ones, luminal A subtype, has expression of mostly G related gene expression, or the basal subtype, which is red, has E related expression, hyper expression. So luminal subtype B and HER2, both of them have HER2 expression. So luminal B subtype is defined as HER2 plus ER expression. Both of them show D related tissue expression, the gene expression, right? So this the reason we by today we know the reason why there are differential gene expressions in these subtypes. If you want to know, in a breast epithelium there are two different types of breast epithelium cells: luminal epithelium and basal epithelium. So most of the basal epithelial tumors that are derived have basal epithelial enriching subtype related gene expression. The ones that are derived from luminal have luminal related gene expression pattern. So today we know why in a subset of tissue system, why there is a differential. Again, the mechanism is not fully understood, but this differential expression is now then further employed into diagnosis of certain subset of breast cancer. And also we employ the extent of these gene expression as a signature to understand whether certain subset of breast cancer will benefit from the therapy or not, depending on how aggressively they are growing. For example, this 70 gene signature is derived from luminal A and luminal B subtype, yeah, where most of the G panel is overexpressed, right? So if certain genes of that panel are overexpressed, it is understood that that particular tumor is hyperproliferating and no therapy. You need to enhance your therapy to mitigate that hyperproliferation. The cancer system that do not have high expression of those genes, you see the yellow as a cutoff line, do not have high, the top ones, where there is no high expression of these genes, good signatures are actually not hyperproliferating. Yeah, they're going to be dormant for a while. So you don't need to give excessive chemotherapy to these patients, because chemotherapy is also cell killing drugs, right? That has quite many side effects, as we discussed last time. You start losing your hair, your colon system goes haywire, you develop nausea because the colon also has hyperproliferating cells. So the chemotherapy drugs target any hyperproliferating cell system, and it creates a havoc in a patient. So you want to de-escalate. Yeah, you want to decide which patients is necessary for you to give therapy and which patients can do without excessive chemotherapy. Yeah, tone down the dose or not give completely. But how do you decide which patients are okay to give therapy, which patients actually don't need therapy, right? So these kind of signatures then were employed to decide the cutoff, whether person needs therapy or not. This was only within ER positive and subset, so that is luminal A and luminal B. So the signature came out 2002, but it took about 2011 for the signature to be approved after various different checks and balances as a diagnostic test to decide for ER positive patient whether to give therapy or not. This is called Oncotype DX diagnostic test. It is a must employed test, mostly in the European and US setting. It is available in India also, but it's subject to the knowledge of the clinician, whether they know and propose or prescribe this test to ER positive breast cancer patient. Yeah, so something for us to be aware of. But this entire test came about to help patient de-escalate, avoid excessive bad effects of chemotherapy, is because of how we understand gene expression and how that gene expression plays role in tumor progression. Yeah, so a lot of basic biology background, but then how it helps humankind. Yeah. Now we change gears to translation, RNA to protein. How much time do I have? So let's go fast. It's a complex system. I don't have much handle on translation system. My forte is transcription mostly, but we know the start of the transcription happens at ATG, which into mRNA becomes AUG. That's where the ribosome, large subunit, small subunit bind the RNA, and that's where the initiation of translation happens. Through elongation, various different amino acids get added, and at the stop codon, a release factor binds ribosome and releases the ribosome from mRNA. right? Now, translation is even far more complex than transcription, right? So there are various different elongation factors, termination factors that play into how ribosome machinery is regulated. And this is further complexity. The machinery, regulation of the machinery on at protein level, and how various different components of this machinery are implicated in cancer development, cancer initiation. That is the summary on this slide. For example, the elongation factor F3 are considered to be oncogenic and tumor suppressor depending on which tissue system they are functioning into. If anybody's interested, can take a look at Nature reviews, but I'm not particularly very good in understanding this complexity of the translation. But translational system is critical because as the cell is undergoing faster replication and hyperproliferation, you do need hyperactivation of protein synthesis machinery also. And as replication goes faulty, as you're going through faster, even protein synthesis, the translational complexity also becomes error prone in hyperproliferating system, right? So along with replication, protein synthesis is also a major contributor in how non-functional or misfunctional proteins are generated into abnormal systems like hyperproliferating systems and cancers, right? So there are various different components that have been developed to target these abnormalities in translation. Metformin is one of the major one that has been employed these days. We know metformin is used for diabetes related abnormalities, but it is being shown that it can be beneficial in cancer mitigation also. Rapamycin also, again, the mTOR target. Most of those mTOR related targets are actually inhibiting the faulty translational system that's gone aberrant in hyperproliferating cancer cells, right? But I don't have a good handle on translation, so please look at the review if you want to know further details on this, right? So putting all of these together, whatever we learned so far in a simplistic manner, right? So the DNA to mRNA to mature RNA to protein, and there are various different places here for to go wrong for cancer to succeed into hyperproliferative state. And these abnormalities is what we catch on to target to prevent hyperproliferation in cancer, right? So not just the protein function, but these central dogmas, transcription, translation also can be targeted if we want to prevent hyperproliferation and cancer progression. Now, adding a little bit of complexity, we have over about 2,000 transcription factors. As I mentioned, we have 20,000 transcripts, not expressed at the same time, but differential tissues. And there are about 100 different RNA binding proteins that take place during translation. We have these many proteins in every cell, and these proteins are further regulated by ubiquitination system, right? Now, this ubiquitination cycle itself has a huge complexity. It also has tissue specificity, and if you want to go into details, you can go to this molecular biosystems review. But taking this complexity further, right? Now, that is only at the cellular level. Now, if we zoom out and go to tissue level, there are various different tissue specific aberrations that are responsible for that tissue specific cancer initiation. For example, KRAS mutation, we know that if it mutated genome level, develops cancer only in lung. It does not affect any other cancers, right? So you will never find KRAS mutation in breast cancer. Although you have germline mutation, but those patients never show up as breast cancer. They always show up as lung and sometimes in the digestive system, like colorectal and pancreas. There are other RAS-related mutations like BRAF and NRAS, mostly in skin-related cancer systems, right? So which type of cell? Right? So what I mentioned, KRAS mutation will never lead to any phenotype, any cancer in breast system, but it will always 80% of the times will lead to a cancer in lung and digestive system. Why is it so? Right? Because not only the germline, not only the cell central dogma like DNA, RNA, transcription machinery plays a role in cancer initiation, but the tumor microenvironment, right, which surrounding tissue system is available in that particular organ is also equally important, equally determinant whether you will develop cancer or not. So I mentioned about the mouse model system with p53 mutation with intravitreal microscopy, right? So there people went with the hypothesis that p53 mutation, we know 80% of the cancers have p53 mutation. So if I have a mutant mouse p53, I should see very high frequency of tumor formation in that particular mouse. What they found was barely 10% of the mice showed hyperplasia, not even cancer development. Yeah, only hyperproliferating cells they found. And when they dug further, the reason being, as I mentioned, is the immune system, host immune system, clearing out these hyperproliferating cells and not letting them grow into tumor formation, right? So the context where these mutations happen is equally important to decide, which decides whether cancer develops further or not. And majority of my lab work is actually in this tumor microenvironment. I work with T cells, fibroblasts, macrophages, and how they interact with the tumor formation. What role do they play in inhibiting tumor progression? So this is another level of complexity I wanted to leave you with, because it's not only the DNA RNA level going abnormal decides whether cancer happens or not, cancer progresses or not, but macro level, the tissue level, the human body system also decides whether you're going to develop cancer or not. So there are multiple angles available for us to prevent the initiation of the cancer or progression of the cancer as well. So these are the resources. I can share those with you, but otherwise, this is about it. So we can talk about it, discuss, and managed this time. Anybody has any questions?
Oh, any questions from students?
So, metformin can be used as a cancer prevention medicine or drug. Means in some cases.
Yeah, not as cancer prevention. It is still targeting the abnormal translation machinery. So once cancer develops, it has been used in combination with certain therapies. Yes. And it is in trial for many, many cancers. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Actually, I have read the book by Dr. David Sinclair, Lifespan. So in his book, that metformin was very, glorified. I don't have
Yeah.
another word for it, but
It does lot many things. Yes.
yes.
So targeting abnormal translational machinery is one thing. It also regulates cholesterol biosynthesis. So it targets certain enzymes that are involved in cholesterol biosynthesis. So the drug does lot many different things. And it's also actually a challenge because it can have side effects on the system.
It's kidney damage.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Madhuri ma'am,
Yeah.
mostly introns removed through the splicing mechanism. So if mutations occur in intronic region, so how it's regulated in further gene reaction?
So mostly at the intron-exon boundary, certain mutations happen. I have some examples. If you're interested, I can share. So the spliceosome needs a specific sequence at intron-exon junction for a spliceosome to bind.
Okay.
Only then the splicing will happen between the two exons. But if that sequence is mutated, spliceosome cannot bind, and then intron is not removed or splicing is abnormal. Then that leads to truncated protein, abnormal domain structure. So that is basically loss of function. Yes, such splice variants are p53 have such splice variant, and loss of function p53 can happen through splicing mutations also. It's a common mechanism for p53 specifically.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. And is any banding technique is to detect cancer translocation chromosomes?
Very much. So that is actually the fundamental way until sequencing came about, people used to diagnose various different blood-related malignancy. I showed that summary slide with various different translocations. That is the map histopathologists used to diagnose hematological malignancies, blood-related malignancies.
Which type
Today,
of
with sequencing, we know the specific mutations and everything, but even today, that is employed as a primary diagnostic mechanism to define which kind of malignancy.
like a GIMSA banding, R banding, T
Correct.
banding?
Karyotyping.
So which
Karyotyping.
type of banding technique we use to detect cancer?
So I think GIMSA was the old one that's outdated now.
Okay.
People use mostly digital karyotyping now.
Okay.
What dye do they use? I do not know. I have to find out.
Okay. Thank you.
But if you want to actually have a demonstration, in Aurangabad, there is a Bajaj Cancer Hospital.
Okay.
There, I know even today they do karyotyping for mostly all the blood cancers, and that's a GIMSA one. So if you're interested to do a field trip and stuff, there you can see live how patients are diagnosed with the karyotyping blood filter. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah. Someone has a text. One question or oh, okay. Thank you.